Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the RFM audio production channel, where we here help you get that shimmering, lovely reverb. In today's episode, we'll be looking at how to properly implement reverb in your mixes. This will be going through all the different controls, how you should think about reverb, and a couple of tips and tricks at the end you might actually quite enjoy. All of this content is recorded live on Twitch, so if you'd like to join in the live chat, please follow me down. I've put my link in the description. And as always, if you guys are enjoying this content, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to everything you see. That way you don't miss a thing and it helps the channel out as well. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to leave them down in the comments and I will get back to you on them. Anyway, let's get on with the episode, shall we? As always, whoop. Right, here we have our session up from the previous. Let me just get my headphones in. Right, give me 2 seconds. There we go. Right. So let's just have a listen to the track overall. I do already have some reverb in this, but that's not important right now.
Will I ever get cold? Will I ever get past the one? I'm either falling apart or telling myself I won. A sunny new day of depression. I can go wasted shots of cold. If you get a chance, you're not taking, but I'm underneath some self-control. The weatherman say I better be plans. I'm in over my head and under your hands. We all know what happens next. We all know how it ends.
So it's not bad. Definitely, I've actually already got some reverbs in, but I'm going to go through the different controls first, just that way you actually understand what it is I'm doing. So if I just bring up reverb, let's just create a new track, I think. There we go. Call that reverb. Right. And then we will bring up reverberate. Fantastic. So you've got all these different controls you might be unsure what to do with in the first place. They're actually relatively self-explanatory, but I'm going to take you through them anyway. Now, the thing with the reverb plugin in Reaper is that they actually changed the names down a little bit, which is nice because they do kind of simplify it a little bit, which is good. But we'll go through it anyway. So I'm sure you can guess the room size. The room size is just more or less the length of the reverb. The larger the room size, the longer the reverb will go for. The smaller the room size, the shorter it will go for. Now the dampening will probably... I've never really used the dampening much in this plugin, but I believe what it does is that it actually like sort of like EQs, maybe does like a low pass filter on the various on the reverb, on the long delays and the kind of roll off at the end. Stereo width is something that you might not get in all reverbs, but it is definitely a good thing to use, mainly because like I sometimes use mono reverbs as well, and I'm actually going to go into that a bit later on. Mono reverbs are fantastic, but right now we're just going to start with the stereo width at 1, so that's no problem at all. And what we have here is initial delay. Now a lot of reverbs don't call it initial delay, they will call it pre-delay. Now that is the length of time it takes before the reverb starts. So you've got the initial dry signal coming through, say like a vocal or a snare drum. Excuse me. Like a vocal or snare drum. And then the pre-delay, or initial delay in this case, actually is what determines how long it takes before that reverb then starts. Now, the pre-delay will also be almost like a doubling of the initial. It'll almost sound like a doubling of the initial signal, and then it'll start to kind of like meld together to make that sound of like an echo or a reverb as we get it. And then at the bottom here, you don't always get this in reverbs, but this is also a great thing to have because especially digital reverbs have quite an unnatural sound to it. They'll have like an EQ, mostly just low pass and high pass filters. If you don't have this, I recommend slapping on an EQ afterwards, just to make sure that you do actually, what you do is, especially with like the high pass, you want to probably take that up to like even as far up as 250. That way it doesn't get in the way of the bass. It doesn't clarity up that bottom end of the mix. It is not pleasant to have. It is easy to make a mix sound really, really muddy with reverb. It just gives a nasty smearing effect. It just doesn't sound pleasant. Also, reverbs tend to have an unnatural high end as well. That's why the low pass filter is really good. I'll go as far down as maybe like 10,000 hertz, maybe even lower. Definitely have a listen to what your reverb will sound like at the end of it, because reverbs are not meant to have this high end. The high end information is what gets absorbed in the environment first, whereas like the kind of like the mids and the lows are more likely to bounce off, and then as it goes down, it gets lower and lower and lower and lower. So definitely cut off some of that high end. It will save you having a harsh sounding mix and a very unnatural sounding reverb. If you have a creative application for it, go right ahead, see what it sounds like with such a bright, shimmering sounding reverb. Maybe you can get quite a dreamy effect out of it. At the end of the day, all of these are just guidelines, rather than rules that you have to pertain by, but a lot of these guidelines, I would say, are very necessary. Definitely worth the effort. And lastly, you have the two main ones, which is your wet and dry signal. So your dry signal is your initial signal that's running through, such as if you've got a vocal running through, it would just be that vocal without the reverb. That's what the dry signal is. And then the wet signal is the reverb itself. So that is the reverb without. I mean, the reverb affected by the vocal, but not with the initial vocal on top. Now, what you may have noticed is that I created its own track for a reverb. The best way, this is to do the routing. So the best way to do routing, the best way to route a reverb, apologies, I'm getting distracted there. The best way to route a reverb is to actually have it on its own track and then make sends from the various channels that are going to it. Now, what this does is, this saves you time and effort creating multiple reverbs on different tracks to actually get that kind of reverb. Now, the problem is if you're also doing it from scratch and you're not using the same reverb, you could be making all of these different reverbs. Now, reverbs are great to layer up on. I don't always just use one reverb for a whole track, but having all of these multiple reverbs can then start to sound confusing. It's hard to tell what the space is in, and then it just starts getting smeary and muddy and unpleasant. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. So create your own channel. In Reaper, it's really easy because it's just as simple as creating a channel and then throwing it on there. Whereas in other things, I believe in the likes of Cubase, or I definitely know in Pro Tools that you have to create an auxiliary track. Create your auxiliary tracks. If you are making auxiliary tracks, make sure they are solo safe as well. That means that when you solo an instrument, say like you solo that vocal, the reverb doesn't cut out as well. When you've got that vocal soloed, you still hear the vocal when it is necessary. Of course, that also, the good thing about solo safe is it doesn't mean it's always soloed. So you can still, if you solo, say, like the drum, you won't start hearing the vocal reverb. So that's definitely something to look out for. Now, what I do when I have my reverb on its own auxiliary channel, I will take the dry signal right down. There's no need for that dry signal here. We've already got it on its own track. And then put the wet signal 100%, or like at unity gain. 0, 100%, whatever it is. It can be called different things on it, but that's definitely what we're going for. Okay, so let's think of a place that actually requires the reverb. I might throw it on the vocal. Let's just...
Will I ever get caught? Will I ever get past the one?
Okay, I'm also going to just mute that delay just for just now.
I'm either
so we can hear the dry signal.
Tell myself I won. A sunny new day of celebration. I can't waste.
One thing I forgot to go over was the mentality of what you should, of like what kind of reverbs you should have on a track. See if you're having a big like thrashing like very quick track, such as this one, right? This is quite a fast track, relatively speaking.
I'm either falling apart or tell myself I won.
With this kind of music, you want short reverbs. The mentality of it is if you have a lot going on, or if you have like a quite a quick sounding track, you want short reverbs. You don't want anything long. You don't want any reverbs that are too long. Also, the inverse happens. If you've got quite a slow track and there's quite a lot of open space involved, you will want more reverb in there, or a longer reverb, not necessarily more. You want a longer reverb to really fill out the space and draw attention to those particular instruments. Yeah, it can also draw attention to the instrument if it's done right. So in this situation, it's quite a quick song, so we're just going to go for a really short reverb. Right, my stereo width is up. Yeah.
I'm either falling apart or tell myself
So what I have to do is just route this, send this over to the reverb.
I'm either falling apart or tell myself I won.
That's quite short.
A sunny new day of celebration. I can't waste that shots of cold. If you get it.
See, if I put the dampening right to 0, you can hear the reverb is quite harsh, whereas I'm going to put it up about.
I'm either falling apart or tell myself I won. A sunny new day of celebration. I can't waste that shots of cold. If you get a chance, you know I'll take it, but I'm gonna need some self-control.
Right. Yeah, okay. We're going to just gradually take this up to a point that we actually feel is quite good in the mix.
Will I ever get caught? Will I ever get past the one? I'm either falling apart or tell myself I won. A sunny new day of time.
So that's just way too long. Absolutely way too long. Right, let's pull that back.
Will I ever get caught? Will I ever get past the one? I'm either falling apart or tell myself I won. A sunny new day of celebration. I can't waste it.
And I'll put a little bit of pre-delay, probably somewhere about 10 milliseconds.
Will I ever get caught? Will I ever get past the one?
Let's
I'm either
exaggerate.
falling apart or tell myself I won.
So you can hear the pre-delay there. That does actually quite show it off quite a bit, but it's too much. At least you understand what the pre-delay does now.
Will I
If that
ever
didn't make
get caught?
much
Will
sense.
I ever get past the one?
Yeah, that's too much. Let's go for about 10 or 20 milliseconds.
Will I ever get caught? Will I ever get past the one?
That way it doesn't push the reverb back
I'm
too
either
much.
falling apart or tell myself I won.
Right, let's hear it in context in the mix.
Will I ever get caught? Will I ever get past the one?
Probably bring the sound down a wee bit.
Falling apart or tell myself I won.
The sound back just slightly.
A sunny new day of celebration. I can't waste that shot to cold. If you get
actually not bad. I'll actually listen to that with the reverb and the delay.
I'm either falling apart or tear myself out. A sunny new day of celebration. I can waste that shot to gold. If you get a chance, you know I'll take it, but I'm gonna need some self-control.
That's not too bad. So we could also probably add those drums in there. I actually already think I have one on the snare. Now the weird thing is that the snare actually, the reverb plugin in this dot has a really weird effect on the snare. Right, let's hear what this. It's not a snare bomb. So in some contexts, the snare can really like benefit from a good reverb. It can really draw attention to it. So let's try put in. I'm gonna try it without this one because I'm not actually sure. I just put this in just to make a demonstration last time, but let's get that over here into this reverb. See what I mean? It's got this weird elastic effect when it comes to it. I have no clue where that comes from. What I could try and do is I could try put a. Let's try put a. Let's try put a EQ before the reverb. See if that actually does anything. Right, let's clear that filter. Get my old-fashioned Fab Filter Pro Q. Fantastic. And see if I do this. If I put that reverb up a bit. Still got that weird elastic thing. Yeah, what reverb was it? I used the delay, the Manny N delay, so I am going to scrap that reverb routing because I do not like how that sounds one bit. Yeah, let's delete that. But no, that's great. Say hi to Sam and Natalie for me. I actually haven't seen them since I left the Slange, to be honest. So let them know I'm thinking about them. I'd love to actually hear from them. Right, I'll probably shorten that delay a wee bit. Let's probably just take it off a wee bit. In fact, you actually can't hear it that much, so let's try push it a little bit. Let's see if pushing that reverb will actually do. It's the short reverb. Cheers, man. That's too muddy.
A sunny new day of celebration. I can waste that shot to gold. If you get a chance, you know I'll take it.
Let's think of something else to put it in. Maybe I could put the drums in. I actually haven't created a thing for that. I don't think the drums need it that much, to be honest. What I might do is I might actually put the vocals in at some other point. Okay, one thing to consider, right? There's a huge debate as to whether, well, I say there's a huge debate. It's more of a you definitely shouldn't. Now, I generally don't do this. I don't generally put the kick and bass guitar through a reverb. Mainly because the low end, again, will clutter up those mixes. But what you can do, if you've got either skinny kick or skinny bass going on, alright, what is it we're doing here? Alright, that's more of a fat kick, so I think it's the bass that we've got. I'm either falling apart or tearing myself apart. It's more of a skinny kick. What you can do is you can actually send the kick to the reverb. Just make sure that you roll off those low end information that you just don't need. Else it will again start muddying up the mix. But what we could do is we could try actually send this to that short reverb that the snare is also going to. But I won't send it quite as harshly. I won't send it quite as strong. You know, I generally don't actually throw my kick and bass onto a reverb, but I actually quite like the way that sounds. It's very subtle. It's not very much we're doing here, but I actually quite like that. I might actually do that more often, you know. I might do that just more often. It's a brand new day, Alright, so generally what I would suggest is that if you've got like one guitar, like it's no problem having a reverb, but if you have like a wall of guitars going on, I would pull it back. I would pull it back as far as you can. Sometimes I would even just like completely cut the reverb altogether if it's a big wall of guitars. There's only 2 guitars in this part, so I don't mind having a little bit of reverb going on in there. It's a brand new day, better get out. Brand new chance to grow, I know. Will I ever be cool? Will I ever get past the wall? I'm either falling apart or tearing myself apart. A sunny new day of celebration. I can't waste it just to go. Yeah, you gotta know when to pull back in the reverb. Sometimes too much is just too much. I like to take it up till I feel like it's just a little too much, and then pull it back slightly. That's the best way to get that sweet spot, in my opinion. Brand new day, better get out.
chance to grow, I know. Will I ever get cold? Will I ever get past the one? I'm either falling apart.
I'm going to give you a couple of tricks that I like to use, and well, there's one trick I like to use, and there's one trick I've actually never used before, which I'm going to give a shot today. I found it online and I thought, let's give that a try, shall we? First one I'm going to use is mono reverbs and guitars. I've actually already sort of demonstrated that on this guitar. So, what I think is better off doing is I generally, if I've got like a couple of guitars, I like to pan them, not hard left and right, but you know, like 50-60% to the left, 50-60% to the right. I've got it at 60% on both, I think. Yeah, more or less. Right. And what I like to do is I like to send a delay, but I make sure it's a mono delay onto the other side, right? That way it doesn't push back the guitars that much, but it's still got that bit of interest and it's still part of a room. Right. A lot of the time what I'll do is I will probably try copy what's on the guitar. So I've got the guitar reverbs here. So I'll probably roughly copy what's going on. Stupid thing. We're on video call. She started school this week in Bordeaux. Flaming heck, man. Bordeaux, that's fancy. That's right fancy. Maybe to me it sounds fancy because it's French. I really don't know anywhere of the fans, but it sounds fancy. Alright, so what was I saying? Anyway, yeah, so what I'll do is I've got guitar one here and then the reverb at the mirror side. So it's the mirror image of it, right? But this time I've got it on mono. Some you might have to route it. You could easily put, if you're on other DAWs, you can create a mono track and then send it that way. The one thing I like about Reaper is that all you have to do is create a track, and those tracks can be used for absolutely anything. You don't have to set a particular track for what you want to use it as. But with that, there does come a slight limitation where I find creating a mono reverb is takes a little bit more effort than what it would usually, but that's one of the few things. But in this case, some reverbs do have like a mono thing. In this one, I've got ST, which is basically the stereo, or you could go left, right. I've actually set it to right, so you can only hear the right side of the channel. That way you can only hear the right side, and it's definitely coming out of that side. So left we got the dry signal, right we got the wet signal. We got the wet reverb. And I also done the same in guitar 2. I created its own, which was very much the same as guitar 1, except it's on the left this time. So it's great because it does actually give that wider sense of thing. The good thing is that I generally don't feel like you actually need to take it off when they both come in together. So let's check it out without. The guitars definitely sound closer to your ear, but I think it doesn't give that large sense. So let's try an end. Probably notice it more here when. I do love that technique, actually. Like I said, if you've only got two guitars, I think it works quite nicely. Such as this one. Obviously, it's to try create that wall of sound. We've already done a wee bit of EQing to try like separate the two guitars so they're very different tonality. But doing that mono reverb for each, make sure you've got the same settings except one's left, one's right, and you'll be laughing. Honestly, it sounds great. It really adds to it. Got one more trick. Right, this is one I've actually never used before. This is something I actually found recently, and I thought it'd be cool to get it out there. Have a wee try at it. So, what I might do is I need to create another plugin, and what we're gonna do is what I said we shouldn't do in this kind of track. Long reverb is create a long reverb. Right, I'll use the other reverb. Where is it? The reverb rather than the reverberate, because that has some really good long impulses. Where have we got? Echo generator file normalized reverb. Reverb generator, echo generator. Right. I quite like. I actually quite like this for this reason, because this does a really good sounding long reverb. So let's send this one. This is going to be nuts when it goes in. Yeah, that's too much.
A brand new chance to grow up.
Listen.
Brand new day, you better get up. A brand new chance to grow up. Will I ever get caught? Will I ever get...
Right. What we are then going to do is we are going to send... If I can remember how to do this properly. This is a bit still getting used to getting used to Reaper with this one, the mentality of it. What we're going to do is we're going to add a compressor to the reverb. Where's my dynamics? Right. I'll just do fat filter. Right. And then we're going to send the vocal again to that, but this time we're sending it to 3 and 4. So that way it is the key this time. So let's see the roots. Yeah, we've got vocal lead going to 1 and 2. That way it creates the reverb. And then 3 and 4, which makes our key. So we are going to side chain it. So every time the vocal, what we're going to do is every time the vocal is singing, the reverb is going to be ducked under, right? So you can't hear the reverb at all. And then it is going to come back up once the guy stops singing. That way it adds that bit of reverb. So let's try this.
A new day, you better get up. A brand new chance to grow up. Will I ever get caught? Will I ever get
it's still there slightly,
one?
but ducking it quite a bit.
I'm either
We're not going to add...
tell myself I won.
What I'm going to do is I'll take that auto game off. That way we don't have any makeup game added to it.
A new day, you better get up. A brand new chance to grow up.
And I'm going to take it down quite a bit. I've got 12 dB of gain reduction there.
Will I ever get past the one? I'm either falling apart.
Right, let's hear what that sounds like in the mix. I've actually never done this before, so let's have a go.
A new day, you better get up. A brand new chance to grow up. Will I ever get caught? Will I ever get past the one? I'm either falling apart or tell myself I won. A sunny new day of celebration. I kick away dead shots to cold. If you get a chance, you're not shaking, but I'm
probably bring that that vocal, that reverb down.
I
don't think we need quite so much in there.
Brand new chance to grow, I know. Will I ever get cold? Will I ever get past the wall? I'm either falling apart or tearing myself apart. A sunny new day of celebration. I can go
What?
waste and shot to
Quite like
go.
that.
If you get a chance, you're not shaking, but I'm gonna need some self-control.
Ducking's a great thing for like creating a sense of space as well, and like moving things out of the way. I did it for guitars in this as well, if I remember right. Yeah, you can see the source coming in there.
Brand new chance to grow, I know. Will I ever get cold? Will I ever get past the wall? I'm either falling apart or tearing myself apart. A sunny new day of celebration. I can go waste and shot to cold. If you get a chance, you're not shaking, but I'm gonna need some self-control.
Also gonna clean that up a little bit.